There is a very special place, a place unlike any other in the world, where hope is always alive and well, where futures that were thought lost are found, where lives are utterly transformed. In this special place, potential is unleashed, promise is fulfilled, dreams are made real, and miracles happen every day. This very special place is Kennedy Krieger Institute. Here, we open new horizons and create new hope for children and young adults who have injuries or disorders of the brain, spinal cord, and developing nervous system. Our approach is unique and remarkably successful because we don't just treat the disease, we nurture the individual. We don't just treat leukodystrophy, we treat Ellie. We don't only see Down syndrome, we see Marcel. We don't simply focus on spinal cord injury, we focus on Julia. Each person who comes to Kennedy Krieger is unique. Each faces a special, daunting challenge. Some have conditions so rare they only strike one in several million. For each of our children, only a tailored treatment approach ever works. Only intensive, personalized attention inspires and sustains progress. Only Kennedy Krieger can turn hopes into realities. To recover and rehabilitate, to grow, learn, and thrive, to experience how rich and full life can be. At Kennedy Krieger, we surround each child and family with a collaborative team of experts from all disciplines. Our world-class nurses, researchers, therapists, and doctors make world-changing advances. We discover groundbreaking treatments and educational approaches inspired by our pioneering research. Our special education programs are world-renowned for helping every student achieve every bit of what's possible. In all these ways, we address all physical, emotional, neurological, developmental, and learning needs. And we see life-changing personal progress that is simply astounding. For Jordan, it means being able to play a video game. For Lydia, it's never letting her disability disable her smile. For Kristen, it's the chance to one day walk down the aisle at her wedding. Kennedy Krieger Institute is a very special place indeed, making remarkable breakthroughs in the lives of our patients and families. By refusing to acknowledge the limits of limits, by changing disabilities into abilities, by empowering the person despite the disorder, by turning the impossible
I love you, son.
into the possible, by never saying never. Kennedy Krieger Institute.
Good evening, and welcome to the 8th Annual Wine Walkabout event, hosted by the Women's Initiative Network for the benefit of Kennedy Krieger Institute. I'm Linda Schaefer-Cameron, Vice President of Philanthropy at Kennedy Krieger, and I'm happy to be with you this evening for this wonderful event. In the past years, this event has been held at the beautiful Caves Valley Golf Club. And while this year we're not physically at that spectacular location, I want to acknowledge the hundreds of guests who are joining us virtually, and thank you for your participation this evening. On behalf of the Institute, I also want to thank our sponsors who have generously supported this event. The Baltimore Ravens, Amy and Mark Fulchino, Bill and Christine Heafy, Kara and Brad Bennett, Wendy Bond, Cynthia and Jack Kavanaugh, Shari and John Tompkins, and Wealth Partners, as well as Michelle Modell in loving memory of Art and Pat Modell. These sponsors are critical to our success. Tonight we'll be together for about 45 minutes, and during that time you'll learn from and be entertained by Peter Wood, Managing Partner at the French Paradox Wines. Peter will guide you through a virtual wine and food tasting experience. In addition to learning about several exceptional wines, what you will hear tonight and see tonight will also be very moving and impactful as it relates to Kennedy Krieger Institute. You see, the mission and the work of the Institute has a tremendous bearing on the lives of families in Maryland and all across the country. We are the leader in the diagnosis, treatment, care, education, and research in the field of neurological disorders and injuries. There is no other institute that provides the scope of expertise and care like Kennedy Krieger. So now let the fun begin. I would like to thank our co-chairs for this evening's event, Cynthia Kavanaugh, Amy Fulchino, and Shari Tompkins, and I will pass it on to Cynthia.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us for the 8th Annual Win Wine Walkabout. My name is Cynthia Kavanaugh, and I'm pleased to serve as one of the co-chairs for this evening's event with my friends Amy Fulchino and Shari Tompkins. Shari and I are coming to you from the stunning Caves Valley Golf Club, which is the traditional site of this fabulous event. We hope to welcome you to Caves again in person next year, but this evening we are so grateful to you, our hundreds of guests who are tuning in online to enjoy a wonderful wine tasting and support the great work of Kennedy Krieger Institute. As co-chair and a longtime member of the Women's Initiative Network, I'm so thrilled that we could come together to support the important work of the Institute. Each year, WIN is instrumental in selecting a project to support through the proceeds of this event, and this year we are pleased that the funds raised here tonight will purchase a critically needed shade structure for the playground at the Institute's Fairmount School.
We chose to support this project because it really resonated with us, as we understand the importance of getting the children we serve back to school and the value of outdoor play on their development and health. You see, the students at the Fairmount School have a variety of developmental disabilities, and many have health conditions that make exercising in the elements very difficult. Adding a shade structure will allow students to play outside more often, and right now that's more critical than ever. Just by participating tonight, you're allowing us to get closer to achieving that goal for our students. However, if you're also inclined to provide additional help, you can purchase raffle tickets where you could win 4 tickets to the much anticipated BMW Classic Golf Tournament at Caves Valley, or you could win gourmet dinner for 4 from the spectacular Linwoods. Or you could win a wine tasting for 10 offered by the French Paradox. In addition, you'll have the opportunity to participate in the live ask portion of this event. Now I'd like to introduce Peter Wood, wine expert and managing partner at the French Paradox in Stevenson Village, who will dazzle us with his knowledge of the grape and lead us in an informative and fun wine tasting experience.
Welcome to Wine Walkabout virtual event and tasting. I want to thank Kennedy Krieger for allowing me to come here tonight and walk through some wines with you. Again, I run, along with my son Matthew, the French Paradox Wine Shop in Stevenson Village, where we try to find the best wine for you. Tonight, we're going to try the following wines, all from Willamette Valley's Argyle Winery. Start off with their 2016 sparkling wine, move on to the 2020 Rosé of Pinot Noir, and finish up with the 2019 Willamette Valley Pinot Noir. They are among my favorite producers in the Willamette Valley. For those of you that don't know much about the geography of Oregon and Willamette, we're talking about southwest of Portland, roughly between Portland and Salem, moving towards the Pacific Ocean, which allows to have cool climate in producing these wines. I want to thank the sponsors and guests that have joined us here tonight. And please, don't forget to purchase your raffle tickets. And remember, we'll take questions at the end of the evening. So we're going to start off with our sparkling wine, which was the reason that Argyle was founded in the 80s in the Willamette Valley to produce sparkling wines. This wine is made in the same method as those sparkling wines from Champagne, in that they use 3 primary grapes: Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. There's the pop. Everybody, pour a glass. And you're right, I'm using a stemless glass, which to some people is just bad form. I like stemless glasses because, frankly, the stems don't break. They're easier to wash. They go in the dishwasher. The wine still tastes good. Along with me, if you would, smell the wine. Even give it a little swirl. And the reason we do that is because, especially in the case of this wine, it's been in bottle for 3 years. Allowing some oxygen to interact with the wine brings out some of the aromas and some of the flavors. Swirl if it's comfortable. Smell it again. And I think what we're smelling in this wine is perhaps aptly flavors. But we get some of the bready notes, which are typical of a wine made in the fashion of Champagne, in that the wine rests on the lees of the yeast and brings forward some, let's call it brioche type aromas. Taste the wine. And again, I think we get some deep apple flavors with some bright acidity. This wine in particular, I think, goes wonderfully well with the fabulous charcuterie tray that Linwoods put together for the event tonight. What we find on here is a variety of meats and cheeses and fruits. The acidity in this wine allows us to really enjoy the cheese and the charcuterie. The finish on this wine, and finish is a fancy word to describe what you taste after you've swallowed the wine, I think really shows some of those bread-like flavors and aromas. The other thing to think about when you're tasting wine is how the wine changes in the glass. Again, the air interacts with the wine, and as it does so, the wine opens up, you get more aromas, you get more and different flavors. Some people prefer to do that all at one time by aerating the wine. Other people, like me, prefer to let the wine open up over a period of time. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Brad Schlager, President and CEO of Kennedy Krieger Institute, and Sandy Jenkins, Director of Education at the Fairmount School.
Hello everyone and welcome to the 2021 Wine Walkabout hosted by the Women's Initiative Network for Kennedy Krieger Institute. I'm Dr. Brad Schlager, Kennedy Krieger's President and CEO, and I'm joined by Sandy Jenkins, the Director of Kennedy Krieger's Lower and Middle School at our Fairmount campus in Baltimore. We're both so glad that you're here with us tonight and so grateful to the Women's Initiative Network, our WIN group, for again organizing such a fun and meaningful event despite all the challenges that this year has brought. Sandy and I are excited to come to you tonight from the playground at our Fairmount campus and share with you 2 subjects that are near and dear to our hearts: education and the students we serve at Kennedy Krieger. Sandy, how long have you been an educator?
I've worked in education for 28 years, Brad, and I've been at the Kennedy Krieger School for over 19.
That's wonderful. Some folks know that my mom is a retired teacher and principal, and growing up learning from her, it was instilled in me from as far back as I can remember that education is an essential ingredient for success in life. And I learned first from my mom, and then through my training and then work as a pediatric neurologist, that education takes many forms and needs to be adapted to each child's needs.
That's right, Brad. We know that physical activity and play are crucial elements for child development, especially for the children we serve here at the Fairmount School. The kids we serve here have special developmental and often physical challenges. Safe play and exercise are crucial to their health and developmental progress. This playground gets used by all of our students and by many of the kids that come to the Fairmount building for therapies too.
That's why tonight we are raising funds specifically for our Fairmount School, for our kindergarten through 8th grade students who attend school here. You may already know that our school programs at Kennedy Krieger offer special education and therapeutic services to children ages 5 to 21 years. But you may not know that our students come from all over Maryland and Washington, D.C., and they have a wide variety of learning and health challenges that aren't able to be addressed in their local public schools. So through our 4 school locations, Kennedy Krieger provides over 525 students with these services every year, including this past extraordinary year when educational and clinical services were provided 5 days a week via teletechnologies. But now many of our students are back on campus and they have lots of pent-up energy. Sandy, what's this year been like for you and the school staff and students?
Brad, it's been really challenging. We've had to be nimble, innovative, and patient to find ways to continue to safely reach and teach our students and provide therapies to our special kiddos despite the pandemic. And I'm so proud and grateful for our staff, students, and their families, and all the hard work that they've contributed to make this happen. We've really worked together as a team, and now we're really excited to have our students back on campus. Here at our Fairmount School, we are so fortunate to have this very special accessible therapeutic playground designed specifically for our student population. It was a gift a few years ago from a very generous corporate donor. Our kids absolutely love their playground. In fact, time on the playground is often a big incentive for our students completing classroom projects and promoting positive behaviors. But as you know, here in Baltimore, we can get some very hot and sunny days, and also rainy weather. There are days when our students can't use the playground as much as they and the staff would like, because it's either too hot or too wet. And now, with COVID-19 indoor capacity restrictions, we want to use the playground even more. The playground allows for some kids to be outside playing while others are inside in smaller numbers receiving instruction. But if it's too hot, sunny, or rainy, we don't have that option.
So that's where you all come in. Our goal tonight is to raise enough in donations to fund a fabulous new playground shade structure that will allow our students and patients to use this playground and outdoor learning and therapy space more often, more safely, and more comfortably. We need to raise at least $20,000 to do that. Can we count on you to help make this happen? You know, whether you are a longtime Kennedy Krieger supporter or a first-time guest at tonight's fun event, we're so grateful you are here tonight. Please, have fun, enjoy the wonderful food and libations. Thank you so much for your support of our students, our staff, and our programs that help change lives. Sandy, should we go have some fun?
Thank you, Dr. Schlager and Sandy. You know, I continue to be blown away by the services and education the Institute provides to so many young children and adults. Now I'd like to have the opportunity to introduce to you the winemaker of the wines we are tasting tonight. I had the chance to catch up with Nate Klosterman of Argyle Winery recently. Let's take a listen to our discussion.
Hi, I'm here today with Nate Klosterman, who's the winemaker at Argyle Winery in the beautiful and bucolic Willamette Valley in Oregon. Argyle is one of the grand dames of the Oregon wine industry, having started in 1987, and is still one of the few and also preeminent sparkling wine houses in Oregon. Nate, it's good to see you, and I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit about your journey to Oregon and Argyle.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I grew up in the Midwest in Wisconsin, and then I started home brewing in college. But there was like a handful of breweries back then. It wasn't like the boom that it is now. And so I was taking my last semester there. I was taking a course it was a wine course basically. There was a guy from Red Wing, Minnesota, which is down on the Mississippi River, about an hour away from the Twin Cities, that came and spoke to the class. He had a little mom and pop winery, and he mentioned that he was looking for a little help. He was interested in having me down, so I did that for kind of my last few months of college, and I fell in love with it.
All right. What are you doing today at Argyle? I mean, what's your literal challenge, schedule, tasks that you've got lined up today?
We make a lot of sparkling wine, so today we are disgorging the 2017 Knudsen Vineyard Brut. So this is a cool wine. It's a single parcel wine from Knudsen Vineyard in the Dundee Hills, originally planted in the early 70s.
One of the things that has drawn me to wine is the history of wine, and I so enjoy finding out that the history of a particular house like yours or style has been codified for years or centuries.
All of our wines, both still wines and sparkling wines, the sparkling wines are most exciting to me. We still keep a cage, so about 40 cases or so on yeast. That seeing the evolution of that on yeast over that period of time is really fascinating. So our first vintage was 87, and we still we check in on those. We did a release in 2012 when we got to look at the next release of this, because this is like super energetic and evolving, and just fun little treasures to pull back out and see how they're going.
I'm going to call you every year at this time to insist that when the 87 is ready to be re-released, I get some. People tend to believe these days that white wines don't age as beneficially as red wines.
There's great examples of white wines that just age beautifully. I know for us, we've got Riesling also from the 80s that is just incredible, like just vibrant and juicy and complex, and then we opened up another one and it was totally brown and over the hill. So a lot of that, it's a lot of closure is a huge factor in that, for sure.
Well, should we weigh in on that? Are you a cork guy or are you a alternative closure guy?
The consistency and the ageability and the freshness of the screw cap closures really jumped out to us, and so we made the full switch for our still wines to go to screw cap in 03. And we still have some of those trials from 01, 02, cork versus screw cap, and it's amazing to see the difference. The screw caps are still super fresh and vibrant and just amazing.
How much of adaptation is going on today, or adaptation is going on today, because of either the effects of climate change that you see, or what you're anticipating?
A lot of that is with vineyard location, so higher elevation that help extend that growing season, to kind of buffer those warmer, drier years. And then another one is it's kind of canopy management, so leaf pulling, leaf shading, where we're leaving little just like little overhangs here or there, kind of like an umbrella essentially, but then leafing through the middle, so we can get airflow. You can go closer to the coast range, which tends to be a little windier, a little bit cooler, but it's exciting to see what people are doing, pushing the envelope.
I want to know, what's your desert island, grape or wine?
I'd take a consistent supply of Pierre Peters Champagne Blanc de Blanc. If I was on an island and sunny, it's refreshing and vibrant in that sense, but it's also deep and complex. If I was in a Pacific Northwest rainy island. But yeah, I always gravitate to Pierre Peters if people ask me that.
I can't tell you how much I want to spend more time talking wines, and especially since you agree with nearly everything I say. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate your wines. Next time I go to Oregon, I'll bring some Pierre Peters with me.
Fantastic. Look
All right.
forward to it.
And don't forget, I get some of the 87 when you re-release it.
Yeah, I'll pull some out when you come.
All right. Great. Thanks again. You have a good day. Take care.
Thanks.
You can learn a lot when talking to the master of their craft. Speaking of which, let's talk about our next wine, Argyle's Rosé of Pinot Noir. Naturally, closed under screw cap. Now again, as Nate mentioned, Argyle moved to screw caps all the way back in 2003. There still is quite a bit of concern within the industry, but I think science has taught us conclusively that if you want your wine to be fresh, close it under screw cap. Now, if you want your wine to be mysterious, which it's really not, use a cork. Wine is not mysterious. Wine is not magical. It's wonderful and delicious, but ultimately it's knowable if you care to spend the time to learn it. Again, let's talk about some rosé. Rosé, as we know, is hugely popular today. And for that reason, many people seem to think that it's a new wine. Frankly, it's one of the oldest wines ever made, and it's because of its speed of production. Remember, rosé is made by allowing the red grape to stay in contact with the juice of the grape for a relatively short period of time, thereby leaching less pigmentation into the wine. Generally speaking, rosés do not spend excessive time aging, either in barrel or other vessels. They're generally released to the public relatively quickly. And for that reason, people have another false idea about rosé, that they're meant for only summer consumption. My friends, I'm here to tell you, rosé is a year-round wine that's perhaps at its best not in the summer, but in the spring and the fall as transitional wines. When we're transitioning from the winter into warmer weather, or we're transitioning from warmer weather into cooler weathers. Rosés, because of the combination of the red grape, relatively light tannins, and relatively broad acidity, allows that to work well. Rosé is also a wonderful food wine. You know, my good friends at Linwoods, they do such a fabulous job. And the food that they put together tonight with the meats and cheeses is perfect for rosé because of that high acidity. Here we go again. I'm swirling the wine, and I'm sure many, many, many of you get really tired of your friends that are a bit geekish on the topic of wine, swirling their wine endlessly. It's a bad habit that us wine geeks do. I love the aroma of this wine. I really think I get a whiff of pineapple. Now, how is that possible, you might ask? How do we get a wine made from the grape Pinot Noir to smell like pineapple? One of the interesting things about wine is not only do we have an opportunity to smell it and taste it, we also have an opportunity to relate to it other flavors and aromas. So maybe this wine is less really smelling of pineapple and more evocative of pineapple. Let's give it another smell. The pineapple's a bit dissipated now. Maybe now we get some strawberry and berry in the wine. But that's unimportant. The number of aromas or flavors that you can pick out in a wine is frankly overrated. And frankly, a little bit of lying. As we know, human beings don't taste things very proficiently. And the notion that there's a handful of people out there that have super taste buds is pretty much untrue. What you do have is people that have trained themselves by learning, by tasting, by identifying any number of wines. So they've trained their memory, not their tongue. They've learned about wines, and they've learned to pick out certain aromas and flavors that give them hints to where the wine is from, what the grape is. I tend to think that the vaulted perfection of those experts is a little overstated. Just as in the Baseball Hall of Fame, the best hitters fail 70% of the time, in my opinion, and my research tasting with some of these people, they fail every bit as much. Let's go back to the rosé a second. Oops, why did I do that? Again, I wanted to bring some air into my mouth to mix with the wine. That allows the wine to open up a little bit more, so we'll get a greater experience of the flavors. The thing that this wine is so remarkable to me about is the level of acidity. So what acidity does in a wine is it actually makes you salivate. So this wine is a wonderful aperitif for that reason, because it makes you hungry. The high acidity in this wine makes you want to eat. It makes you want to go to Linwoods or any number of other places. I'll go to Linwoods. Furthermore about this wine is it gives you some texture. One of the complaints that I think people have about white wine is that people tend to think that white wines, by their very nature, are lighter, and red wines, by their nature, are thicker. The reality is that's in the hand of the winemaker and doesn't have all that much to do with the grape. Now, when you have this kind of hybrid wine, a white wine made from a red grape, that narrows the gap a little bit. So what we have in this wine is some of the texture and weight of what one might think is a red wine with the higher acidity that one might think is typical of a white wine. The other thing I want to point about rosé in particular is I think as modern Americans, we over-refrigerate our wines, and we certainly over-refrigerate our white wine, our rosés, certainly our white wines as well. I think we need to think about temperature of wine in a historical context. Remember, room temperature has only been 70 degrees for the last 70 or 80 years. For the thousands of years before that, for the thousands of years of winemaking before that, room temperature was more likely 50 degrees. And by the way, you didn't have a refrigerator to keep your wines, your white wines and your rosés, at 40 degrees or 42 degrees. So I think we have a tendency now to drink our red wines too warm, our white wines and rosé too cold. And if you allow your rosé, in this case, to warm up a little, you get more texture, you get more flavor, and I think it's all in all more enjoyable. The fact that it's pink is nothing to be afraid of. Color doesn't tell you much about a wine. It certainly doesn't tell you if it's sweet or less sweet. What color tells you in a wine is, number one, is it fresh? When you look at a wine, is it vibrant or is it dull? If it's vibrant, the wine is fresh. Whether it's been in screw cap or cork, you want the wine to be fresh. But whether it's darker red, lighter pink, or somewhere in between really doesn't tell you much about the flavor of the wine. What it does tell you is the color of the wine. And I enjoy the color of a rosé. I enjoy the pink or salmon or garnet. I'm not good with colors, so I'm not exactly sure. But I'm not going to use the color of the wine as any indication as to what the wine's going to taste like or what I'm going to pair it with or any of those factors. Instead, I'll enjoy the color on its own and enjoy the wine because I like it. And I like rosé. You should give more rosés a chance. But start off with the Argyle because it's really delicious. It's my favorite of the day, maybe even of the week. Now I'd like to introduce you to Creed and his mother, Michelle, who will tell you about his experience at the Fairmount School and what it means to be back in the classroom.
My name's Michelle Henderson. I'm Creed Henderson's mom. We moved to Maryland from Honolulu, Hawaii, and that was around 6 years ago. And Creed's been a student at Kennedy Krieger for the past 4 years. Creed is 11 years old. He was diagnosed on the autism spectrum at age 2. But of course, with some of the things that come with his autism came some behavioral issues that ultimately really couldn't be accommodated in the public school environment. I'll tell you, we ended up choosing Kennedy Krieger because really from the moment we stepped through the doors, we knew the environment, the tour that we received that day, the welcoming that we got. The school was a school, but it didn't feel different. So we really made that decision for Kennedy Krieger because of that first day. From just walking in, we knew, and we thought, it doesn't matter how far it is, this is the right place for Creed, for sure. We had no doubt in our minds after that day. Creed is a very active kid. He loves being outside. Of course, the playground is his favorite. Like, he loves to have that opportunity during the school day, to take a break, to earn that opportunity. It's really a reward for him to work hard in class to get through a certain assignment or get through a certain class period in order to be able to then go outside and have that free time. So the playground is such an important part of his growth, really. It's just so important for Creed to be here physically and to connect with the teachers one-on-one and socially. For someone like Creed, it's especially for his particular style, if you will, on the autism spectrum, it can be really comfortable to not socialize. So coming back, it's going to be crucial for him to be able to relearn some of those skills or get used to it again, if you will, as far as how to play with others well, how to communicate with a peer, and how to interact with a peer, because he really hasn't had that many opportunities really at all during the pandemic. So that is just as important as having that face-to-face time with a teacher, is also having that face-to-face time with a peer.
When it rains, we will do indoor recess. I would rather to be on the playground. I like to play with my friends on the playground.
What an inspirational story. I want to thank Creed and his family for sharing their experiences with us. We know that this uniquely designed shade structure is so critical for many of our students and will provide additional safe space for play, especially during this challenging time. This structure will cost $20,000 to both purchase and install. I would especially like to thank the families and supporters of the Fairmount School who independently raised $5,000 in advance of this evening's event toward this structure. So now we ask each of you to help us reach our goal by the end of this evening's event. We're very close, and I know we can do it. So if you click on the link from the text messages you have received, or text Win, Wine, Walk to the number on your screen, that'll make it happen. And also, now is the last opportunity to purchase raffle tickets. They're fantastic tickets, so go ahead and do that. And while you're making your gifts, please enjoy more wine, and I will turn it over to Peter.
Thank you, Linda. And as the money pours in, so does our next wine, Pinot Noir. As many of you are probably already aware, Pinot Noir is the it grape in Oregon, especially in the Willamette Valley. Pinot Noir is a difficult grape to grow. And for that reason, in the eyes of many, including myself, you get the absolute best Pinot Noirs from an area in eastern France called Burgundy. Now, although Burgundy and the Willamette Valley do show some latitudinal similarities, it's really not that issue. Because let's face it, the same latitude goes through parts of Wisconsin. What really is the issue with Pinot Noir is it's a finicky grape. It doesn't like to be too hot. It doesn't like too much sun. It absolutely hates too much rain, but it needs some rain, it needs some sun in order to get ripeness. Now, those areas in Burgundy that historically make the best Pinot Noirs do so because they share many similarities with Oregon. The soil's different. You get a lot of limestone in Burgundy, but what you have that is similar is really the cool climate, the lack of days and days of bright sunshine, although you get some sunshine, the fact that it rains mostly in the winter and spring and then dries out mostly in the summer. And you have these steep graded hills that the water can run down. And erosion washes some of the soils down to the bottom of the hill as well, which allows the top and the sides of the hills, which are the best places for the vineyards, to have poor soil, which forces the grape to work hard for nutrients and water. The idea of making the grape work hard is what makes great wine. And we're going to taste this wine from Argyle. This is their everyday Willamette Valley Pinot Noir. Again, sealed in a screw cap, as it should be. Darkly colored, but what's important about the color, again, is it looks fresh. When you look at this wine, it's bright. It doesn't look dulled. That's the important thing about the color. If it were darker, would it be better? It'd be different, perhaps, but not necessarily better. Because remember, wine is about context and your own personal preferences. There is no rule that says a wine that is thicker is better because it's thicker, or a wine that is thinner is better because it's thinner. The reality is the viscosity of the wine, the flavor of the wine, the aromas of the wine are all in the eye of the beholder. They're all important to you and you alone. It's pretty ridiculous that there are people that think that somebody else who doesn't know you, who doesn't know where you are, who doesn't know what you're eating, who doesn't know who you're with, who doesn't know your preferences, has any idea as to whether or not a wine is good for you. It might be very good for them, but that's not really the same, is it? Because wine is a very personal beverage. We're taking this glass of wine, we're sharing it with our friends or our loved ones, we're perhaps having a meal and sharing a meal over it, we're putting it into our bodies. Of course it's personal. So by all means you should have the wine you like. This wine in particular, I think is pretty interesting from the get-go. Swirl it if you will, smell it a little bit. The first thing that jumps out of the wine for me is cinnamon. I think the cinnamon precedes the fruit flavors. And then, I don't know, maybe a little bit of white pepper. That's really complexity in wine, is when you start experiencing some aromas and flavors that you weren't expecting. And one of the joys of wine, to me, and perhaps to you as well, is letting those flavors expand over a period of time in the glass. That's why we geeks pour small pours, because we want the oxygen to impact with the wine. We want the opportunity for the wine to change. That's why we decant wines, especially if they're younger. Now, we decant older wines because as wines age, they throw off sediment. And that's because the polyphenols in the wine get heavy, bond together, and drop to the bottom. That's why we lose color. That's why we lose acidity. That's why we lose flavor. in wines because those polyphenols bond and drop out. So if you've got an old wine, if you've got a 20-year wine or a 25-year-old wine, you very well may want to decant it to leave the sediment behind. If you've got a young wine, you might want to decant it because you want to aerate it quickly. You don't want to do what I prefer to do, which is let the wine kind of change organically over the course of the meal. You know, there's no right or wrong way to enjoy wine. The person that tells you that you're enjoying wine wrong just doesn't get it. Let's taste this wine a minute. There I go again, bringing air into my mouth and swirling the wine around. Again, I do that because I want the wine to touch the variety of tasting centers on my tongue. I want more air in the wine. So now that I taste this wine, that cinnamon is still there, but now I'm getting, I don't know, a plum? More than berry? But again, that's not the important thing. Do you like it? Is it enjoyable? Some people have a problem with Pinot Noir because they believe that thicker wines are better. One of the things that Pinot Noir gives us in place of thickness sometimes is texture. So Pinot Noirs, generally speaking, offer softer, less robust tannins than, say, a Syrah or a Cabernet Sauvignon. But the fact of their tannins being subdued doesn't mean that they don't exist. So you get a textural component from a well-made Pinot Noir that belies the weight of it. Certainly it's not as thick as some wines you might enjoy, but it still stays around because that textural component remains in your mouth. And that's why it's a good food wine. Despite the fact that it's low in tannins and therefore not necessarily the best wine with fatty foods, again, it goes great with the variety that we have from the plates from Linwoods here today. I especially like it with the firmer cheeses. I can't get over that cinnamon and white pepper. And although it sounds like they perhaps would clash, I can assure you it works with this wine. I also like everything about it. It's easy to like. It's pleasant. It's enjoyable. It brings a smile to my face. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want from a wine. Long after we forget about the actual wine, we remember the experiences and we remember the joy that brought us together with our friends and family over a meal, over a glass of wine. That's the important thing to remember. Thank you. Well, one last point. Don't forget, send in your questions. Linda will read your questions, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Peter. The first question, does the glassware matter when drinking wine?
I can state unequivocally, maybe. The glassware matters if it matters to you. Certainly using different glasses and the way they're shaped will allow the wine to aerate differently and will hit different parts in your mouth. That may be important to you. So it may be important that you have a different glass for every different kind of wine. But I got to tell you, if it's not that important to you, then that's okay. Pour your wine into a jelly jar if you'd like. If it's a good wine, a wine that you enjoy, it'll still taste good.
Okay, great, thanks. We know that Oregon has, renowned Pinot Noir. What makes Oregon perfect for growing Pinot Noir grapes?
Well, I'm not going to say that Oregon is perfect for growing Pinot Noir grapes. I will say that it's perhaps the second best place outside of Burgundy. But again, what makes Oregon perfect? And the best way to think about this is, I think, in comparison to other places. So California is blessed with wonderful sunshine, perhaps too much for Pinot Noir, because Pinot Noir has a tendency to perhaps blister with too much sunshine. So Pinot Noir likes cool, long ripening areas. Pinot Noir hates having its feet wet, which means that the roots like to be dry to prosper. So you want your Pinot Noir to be planted on a hill with good drainage, get sun, but not too much sun, hot temperatures, but not too hot, a long ripening procedure, and that's what's best for Pinot Noir. Oregon has those things. So do other places. As I said, Burgundy, many places in Australia, especially southern Australia, the cooler part of Australia.
Okay, thank you. The third question, what is the most important quality to look for when buying wine in the store? Or we should really say buying wine at the French Paradox.
Well, the most important thing about buying wine, and hopefully at the French Paradox or any other place, is having an understanding of what you like, why you like it, and what your budget is. There's an ocean of wine in the world, and there is no one correct wine. There is no one best wine. It's in the eye of the beholder. So what we try to do, and what you should do when you're shopping on your own, if there is no assistance around, is think about, what am I doing with this wine? Is it going to serve as a cocktail? Well, if it is, then perhaps you want something that has less acidity and more fruit. Am I going to serve it with dinner? Well, then perhaps you want a wine that has more acidity and less fruit. Or if you're serving it with dinner, is the wine the important thing on the table? Or is the dinner that you slaved over all afternoon the important thing on the table? If it's the dinner, then allow the wine to be secondary to the food. But if what you want to do is put together a wine tasting with a variety of flavors that contrast each other, then accept that that's what you want to do and then move towards that direction. But nobody knows what you like or the context in which you'll be drinking or serving, unless you tell us. So what we try to do at the French Paradox is ask you and try to come up with the right answer. Now, there may be more than one correct answer, and at that point, I very well may tell you what my opinion is. My opinion may be spot on. It may not be either. In fact, somebody told me recently that I'm batting 1,000, that I've never been wrong in picking their wine. I had to inform them, sadly, that any day now, I was going to be wrong.
Okay, last question. Can I transition that Pinot Noir that we just had into the tenderloin dinner I'm serving now?
Oh, absolutely. So, as we know, tenderloin is relatively low in fat. So a relatively light tannic wine like Pinot Noir is perfect for your tenderloin. In fact, I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off. Oh, did I say that? I know I'm going to upset a lot of people when I tell you that don't have an American Cabernet Sauvignon with your filet mignon. Too much tannin. Have that with your ribeye. Thanks. I appreciated your time. I appreciated your question. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Peter. Let's find out who the lucky winners are for tonight's raffle. We'll start with the third prize, a delicious dinner for 4 curbside from Linwoods. And the winner is Betsy Catcher. The second prize, a wine and cheese tasting from the French Paradox Wines for 10 in the winner's home, Cynthia Cavanaugh. Congratulations. And the first prize, the 4 Trophy Club tickets for the 2021 BMW Championship at Caves Valley Golf Club is Tim Verdette. Congratulations. We hope the winners of this raffle will enjoy these terrific prizes. And now I'm so pleased to share that, oh my, thanks to a generous gift from our board chair, Nancy Grasmick, along with your generosity tonight, over $25,000 has been raised to support the installation of the shade structure at the Fairmount School playground. Thank you for helping us reach our goal. The kids will be thrilled. And cheers to each of you at home for your support and commitment to Kennedy Krieger Institute, our patients, students, and families. We want to thank all of our sponsors who have graciously supported this 8th annual Wine Walkabout event. And their names are on your screen right now. On behalf of Kennedy Krieger Institute and the Women's Initiative Network, thank you. And lastly, please save the date for our 6th annual Hats and Horses event taking place on Thursday, September 30th at the Winslow in Baltimore. It is an evening not to be missed. So good night, stay safe, and thank you so much.